What's up, summoners? King Blair here. With Fallen Cecilia only having less than 2 weeks in the Mystic rotation and Emma Lilibet being just around the corner, I wanted to do a discussion on Fallen Cecilia as well as a showcase to show you guys why you guys should really consider pulling for her. She has been an amazing unit for a very long time and has been tried and true. Even though Emma Lilibet does look like a very strong unit, Fallen Cecilia, it is going to be one of the best defensive units, as you will see later in this video. But if you like the video, make sure you like, subscribe, and join the Discord server, link down in the description. But without further ado, let's get right into it. So before I even show you my Fallen Cecilia, before we even do the clips, I want to talk to you guys about why she's such a good unit defensively, right? Particularly in PvP. She doesn't really have a lot of PvE uses. She is going to be a primarily PvP unit, but her PvP usage is amazing. In Arena, these are the top 100 defenses in Arena. Over 50% of the defense utilize a Fallen Cecilia because, again, she is going to be one of the best defensive units. There's very few other units that even come close to her, with Arbiter, Bildred, and Polides and Rowana, but for the most part, Fallen Cecilia, very powerful, taking up a big majority. Before Polides came out, she was in over 80% of defenses, so she definitely has proven that she is a powerful arena defense unit. In RTA as well, with the win rate calculator that I talked about in a different video, when we look at Fallen Cecilia, she has a 55% win rate in champion and a 57% win rate overall. This is the best win rate in RTA of any unit, while also being played in over 50% of games in champion and over 40% of games in challenger, having huge representations. A lot of people are using her. A lot of people are having amazing success with her. She is a tried and true unit for all PvP content, and it goes without saying, sadly I don't have any statistics to show you, but when you look at something like Guild Wars, she is going to be on almost every single arena Guild Wars defense that you face going higher up. Whenever we look, there usually is going to be a Fallen Cecilia, particularly in the fortresses. Maybe not right now for us where we are right now. There you see one Fallen Cecilia, very common Guild Wars defense right there that you see a lot of people use. I have this defense myself, and it just does extremely well, right? Fallen Cecilia is one of the best defensive units in Epic 7. So how does she function and what should you look for as far as stats? So now let's go over to my personal build, and then I'll show you guys another build from the Discord to show you guys another option that you have when building Fallen Cecilia. Again, Discord down in the description. So if you're curious, there should be some tabs that have the top unit builds, and there's a couple of really cool Knight Fallen Cecilias that are out there that are very tanky. So I'll show you mine to show you guys that what I have, and then I'll show you guys some other really strong ones, so you guys get a really good idea of how Fallen Cecilia, how to build it. Right, so when we go to Fallen Cecilia, I still don't have mine fully maxed out. She's not even fully Morgora, and I'm already using her at champion and having great success with her. I'm using more of a Bruiser build. As you see here, I'm trying to get a lot more crit rate, some speed, and of course HP and defense always being nice for a knight. This is not a great Fallen Cecilia. It's very average, but it does a very good job at winning me a lot of fights, as you'll see later down the line. For a more advanced build of what I am trying to achieve, this again is another Bruiser Fallen Cecilia. Again, very tanky, can still pack a punch with the crit rate and the critical hit damage. This one being a much better Fallen Cecilia than my own. And if we scroll up, there is just millions of Fallen Cecilias. This one being the full tank Fallen Cecilia with the Adamant Shield instead of the Aureas. And again, in this scenario, being way tankier, and a little bit faster to be able to cycle the barrier and have huge barriers and take away that turn 1 advantage that the opponent may have. So that's some things on how to build her. And lastly, as far as some gameplay things to consider, she does lose to units like Briarwitch Issaria and Bazaar, and even units like Landy and Falconeer Clarion Ross as well have pretty good matchups against her. So while she's a very strong unit, she is not a unit that does not have counters. She definitely does have counters that you will need to learn so in order to build teams around her, because if you don't build your teams around her properly, it's not going to be great. Right, enough about the discussion portion. Let's actually get to the showcases. So for this first fight, we were going against an opponent that was trying to go with aggro control and try to use Landy to counter Fallen Cecilia, but in the process didn't really put a lot of knights on his side. One thing that Fawn Cecilia does allow you to do with your teams is something called the Shadow Squad. So as you see here, because Fawn Cecilia gives a barrier and I have immunity on a majority of my units, even though he uses Sage Ball S2, that S2 is going to be completely useless. He would have been better off banning the RTA win, since as we know, we have so many buffs, the chances of him stripping our immunity are very, very low. So again, Fawn Cecilia being really good against units that only strip on buff. So just Fairy Tail Tenebria and Sage Ball. The rest of this fight is going to be pretty much over. Again, with the Akali and with the Shadow Squad, we basically take out the Seaside, and there's not a lot he can do. He can't reach my Akali or my Stand to do enough damage to them. As we see here, Fawn Cecilia, even against Landy needs a lot of turns to set up, and we have the Shadow Squad that doesn't even get touched. He doesn't have a way to reach it, and that's going to be it for him. It's going to be way too much single target DPS for him to deal. So this is one of the fun things you can actually do. This also does work with Guiding Light Landy. If your Landy is support Guiding Light, similar to my Akali, you would get the opportunity to also go into kind of hiding with Guiding Light and the barrier. You will not be knocked out of stealth unless they use a strip or something of that manner to actually reach your Fawn Cecilia. So as we see here, my Fawn Cecilia did a really good job with my Shadow Squad. Stopped the initial burst, stopped the Sage Ball. Opponent should have really banned this Fawn Cecilia, but a lot of people tend to underestimate what she actually does, and he ends up losing because of it. Now on to the second fight. For this second fight, we are going to see how Fawn Cecilia does her job and does pair very well with Fairy Tail Tenebria, but myself being bad with the character, and that's something that Fawn Cecilia cannot fix. She's only there to be a protective barrier. You have to use her like you want to use her. So here, I know the big threat is going to be the Tempasuran. I want her to go early so that my Fairy Tail Tenebria can hit her with S3 and potentially take her out and force a Ruel S3 very early in the fight. So we go for that. Push her back. Again, no damage taken by our Akali. He does not have enough AoE damage to even reach my Akali because my Spectre Tenebria is there. We go for the S3. We don't land anything on the Spectre Tenebria. You guys know, it always happens. If you play control, you live and you die by control. I noticed that this Crawl doesn't seem like he's a very high F-res Crawl, since he does seem to be very, very fast. So I do end up putting on S3 on him, and Fairy Tail Tenebria procs and hits majority of the targets, hitting a silence on the Ruel being quite huge here. We go in for an S3 to do a bunch of damage with our booster Fawn Cecilia. Again, if she was reforged, she'd be doing a lot more damage, but you guys see pretty respectable 5k damage all across the board. He's setting up his Stenet S3. One of the issues that we didn't hit the Stenet is that he got to set up the S3, which will allow him to hit the Akali. Even though if we had hit a S3 on the Stenet, we would have automatically won the fight, because he would have had to waste 2 turns trying to reach her, more T-Suren's S3. Right here, I make the critical mistake of going for the Craw instead of finishing up the T-Suren. If I had just finished up the T-Suren, this fight would have been over. That Craw that was gonna do nothing against me. Huge mistake, and it's actually gonna cost me the fight. So again, Fawn Cecilia, you can't rely on her to do everything, right? You actually have to have a brain when you are playing. Even though he did get lucky the first time, I could have fixed it with the consistency of Fawn Cecilia with Akali. And he keeps getting lucky, but it should never have come to this scenario where the Tempasuran would even be able to get turns and get closer to her S3 that will reveal our Akali. At this point, we should have been there should have been no T-Suren. Our F10 would have still been alive. He would have had to burn an S3 here to revive back the Tempasuran. Both the Craw and the Tempasuran would have been down and out of commission, but now he gets a full team because of my terrible mistake, because now I'm not going to be able to deal with the Tempasuran, and she will eventually reach my Akali. So huge mistake on my part. Again, even though FCC is a very defensive unit, she doesn't do anything more after her initial burst, and that's something you need to accept. You can't mess up after the initial burst. She doesn't get any other AoEs. Her recycling barrier takes a while, especially when she's pushed back. And it's just, at this point, it is going to be kind of over, because we allowed the Tempasuran to get so many extra turns. We allowed her to reach back to her S3, and that cost us the game, because right now I would have either have to beat the Craw or the Tempasuran. So huge mistake on our part. It should have been an easy win, and he also did get lucky. This last one, the FCC is actually on my opponent, and I wanted to show that Fawn Cecilia does lose to units like Black Linear Clury and Strips. He does take away the Bazaar, which is a really good pick when you play Fawn Cecilia, because if you don't, that is going to be a force ban. In the last match, I had to ban the Bazaar or I would have lost. So here, he's kind of going with some pseudo control, so I punish it with a Champion Serrato. He gets a really huge stun on the RTA win and on the Falcon Glory with Abyssal Crown. Abyssal Crown F10 is still being extremely annoying. He gets a lot of setup, but we're deterring a lot with the Chimp. He has a Fawn Cecilia, he has the barriers. I have to get through a lot, but I do have the Lencia that will be able to reach further down the line, be able to reach down in the back, and also set up increased defense for the rest of my team. So again, units like Alencia and Bazaar being really good against Fawn Cecilia, because now that turn 1 advantage that he has with the barrier is pretty much gone, right? He doesn't have a barrier anymore, his other squishy units took more damage, so now I know there's not going to be a recycling barrier on other priority target units. So we got rid of that initial barrier, and any buffs he made I put. He goes extremely hard onto my champion Serrato, but as you guys know, I have a very tanky counter Serrato. And he is going to counterattack here, get a little bit of a heal off, get a little bit of damage in there. He still keeps trying to hit my champion Serrato, which I don't understand why he didn't just wait till later. He does decide to do an S2 here, which I thought was pretty crazy on his part, because that just essentially set him up. But again, high single target damage, consistent damage, being able to strip hurts Fawn Cecilia teams a lot. Fawn Cecilia teams are typically going to be on the tankier side. So in this scenario, we had a really good time. We hit a lot of the S1s on the units we needed to. We tried to go for the Fawn Cecilia, so we're able to use a Tywin S3. But of course, Fawn Cecilia Provoke is going to stop us from doing a Tywin S3. Again, one of the other reasons why Fawn Cecilia is just so ridiculous to me is that 100% chance to provoke every single turn essentially takes out our Tywin out of the fight. And allows it to set up into a very nasty Fairy Tail Tenebria S2. Here we see the mistakes of him going for Bazaar without a soul burn, because he is unable to actually kill my Champ C. And we are going to be able to set up a nasty S3, break some attacks, break some defenses, and set up for our Lencia to kind of do cleanup crew. And we don't know why we decided to soul burn. I think we took it off afterwards. Didn't make sense why we soul burn. That was kind of a mistake, but there's no other unit that I needed to use a soul burn, because all my other units were going to die anyway, since I knew that Italian was going to die next turn. And as you know, Falconeer Clary, again, another really good unit. Even though she didn't do anything this fight to stop Fawn Cecilia from provoking my Tywin, she was still holding us down with that sustain, allowing our Champ C to last that little bit extra longer and set up more decreased defense. Normally, he'd be able to do a lot more. But here we just go in, tap that Bazaar, and it's pretty much over at this point. There's no way he kills my Alencia. There's no way he kills my Tywin. The fight was not looking in his favor. It wasn't looking great for him. He has to finish off the Tywin here. But by then I already have the S3 on Alencia. So again, AoE units, pretty good. That can strip, that can do a lot of damage, that can deal with Fawn Cecilia. You're still going to do it because the recycle barrier goes away pretty quickly. But now, after this, let's go watch some arena clips. Alright, so here we can see how the insane damage mitigation that Fawn Cecilia brings to the table on a turn 1 scenario. The skill nullifier that she applies allows you to keep units safe for longer. You saw me use it earlier in RTA with Assassin Kali where she can't reach. So we set up the nasty S3. This is going to eat up a ton of AoE damage that he normally would have been able to do. We bring our own Alencia, we set up even more increased defense, again because bruiser teams with Fawn Cecilia kind of go hand in hand in a lot of scenarios. He breaks my skill nullifier, he sets up his own skill nullifier, but I'm not too worried, again because at this point we're taking almost no damage. It took him a full RB S3 to even breach the barrier, so we're basically starting the fight at full health, but he already used his burst. And as you know, it's pretty much over after that. I don't have to show you guys the rest. You guys already know. My team is very healthy. The FCC tanked a lot of the... Alright, for this next fight, again, same idea. FCC's dark, FCC has barrier, equals we're not taking a lot of damage. It's usually going to be a 3 to 4.5k recycled barrier. He barely does any damage. I'm not even worried about this Riolet, because even if we set up the Riolet or the T-Cern, we're going to be having our skill modifier up. This T-Cern is going to be doing no damage. Granted, the SCC will probably crack it, so it's not going to do too much, but we'll still have the barrier from the beginning. So essentially, again, Fawn Cecilia just such a good defensive unit. One thing I didn't show in any of the clips was actually Fawn Cecilia in control teams. She also does work extremely well in control teams, like with Fairy Tail Tenebria, as we saw before, because of that recycling provoke, and because usually control Enclites are typically pretty squishy, and Fawn Cecilia just offers so much protection for them that it's just kind of insane, right? It doesn't matter if you're squishy when you have a 3.5k barrier plus a Night Artifact protecting you every single turn, right? So very, very good in control teams and cleave teams as well, because we saw she can actually do pretty significant damage, especially when she's on a bruiser build. But again, with all the defensive stuff and the focusing down with the T-Serum and the FCC, it became an easy win. T-Serum, and we get a pretty easy W. That's all I have for you guys today. Hopefully with this information you can make an informed decision on whether or not you personally want to pull for Fallen Cecilia. Again, she's going to be the best defensive unit that Epic 7 has to offer. She's tried and true. As far as to whether you should pull for her over Emma Lilibet, she is a proven unit that you can use well into the future and will pair well with an Emma Lilibet. But again, at the end of the day, the game is all about having fun and enjoying the units that you want. And I'm sure Emma Lilibet will also be a very strong unit. But that is all I got for you guys today, and I will see y'all next time. Peace.